Would you know what to do if your heart suddenly shifted? No pain, no warning, just a strange, quiet sense that something wasn't right. Richard, a close friend of mine, was 72 when it happened, alone in his garden, pulling weeds like any other morning. The sky was calm. Birds were singing, nothing out of place, until he felt it. Not pain, not panic, just a wave of pressure across his chest and a gut feeling that something was off. He almost dismissed it. Maybe it was the heat. Maybe he just needed rest. But then a line from a video he saw months ago came rushing back. Don't wait for pain. Trust the feeling something's not right. That decision, pausing for a moment, calling 911, chewing an aspirin, sitting upright with his back against the garden wall, saved his life. Here's the hard truth. After 60, heart attacks rarely look like what we see in the movies. And if you live alone, what you do in the first 5 minutes may be the difference between surviving or becoming a silent statistic. Today, we'll walk through the 7 life-saving steps every senior must know before the moment comes. Because one day, it won't be a drill. If this kind of honest life-saving advice matters to you or someone you love, go ahead and hit subscribe. We've got more coming, and it just might save a life. 1. Every 43 seconds, the senior heart attack crisis no one talks about. James had just turned 68. A retired mechanic from Ohio, he spent most of his mornings reading the paper by the window, coffee in hand, cat curled beside him. Life was slower now, familiar, safe. But on a cool March morning, everything changed. He stood up to refill his cup and felt off. Not pain, not even pressure, just an overwhelming wave of fatigue and a strange tightness along his jaw. He sat back down, brushed it off. Probably didn't sleep well, he thought. He didn't call anyone, didn't mention it to his daughter that weekend. 4 days later, he suffered a massive heart attack. Paramedics said it had likely started that very morning. Quietly, gradually, he survived, barely. But recovery was hard, longer than it needed to be. Here's the truth, no one says loud enough. Heart attacks in older adults often don't feel like heart attacks at all. And when you're alone, which many seniors often are, you don't have a second set of eyes to catch what you might miss. Every 43 seconds, someone in the US has a heart attack. And among those over 60, many don't survive. Not because help didn't exist, but because they didn't recognize what was happening in time. Not because they were reckless, but because the signs were quiet, gentle, easy to dismiss. It's easy to think, that won't happen to me, or I'm just tired today. But what if we looked at it differently? What if listening to your body, truly paying attention, wasn't worry but wisdom? What if one quiet moment of curiosity could be the reason you get to see your granddaughter graduate or walk beside your partner one more morning? Too often, we're taught to push through, to not make a fuss, especially those of us raised in a time when being strong meant being silent. But strength, real strength, sometimes looks like picking up the phone, like saying, something feels off. I'm going to check. It's not weakness. It's a promise to yourself to stay here a little longer. James tells that story now at community talks and church groups. He says, if I had trusted that gut feeling instead of brushing it off, I might have avoided months of rehab. I might have saved myself and my family a lot of fear. His voice trembles when he says it, but it's not regret. It's resolve. He knows better now. And that's why this video matters. because maybe no one ever told you that heart attacks aren't always loud. Maybe you thought you had to fall over to be in danger. But the truth is quieter and far more dangerous. And what you choose to do with that truth could make all the difference. Let's talk about the first step you need to know if that moment ever comes. 2. Spot the silent signs, the senior symptoms you're ignoring. Margaret never liked to complain. At 76, she still volunteered at her local library, baked every Sunday for her grandkids, and said she felt lucky just to wake up each day. So when she started feeling more tired than usual, needing to sit down halfway through folding laundry, or feeling dizzy after taking the trash out, she told herself it was just part of getting older. Then came a morning she described as just strange. She felt a little nauseous, had no appetite, and broke into a cold sweat while simply pouring a glass of water. No chest pain, no racing heart, just a heavy fatigue and a sense that something was wrong. But she didn't call anyone. She lay down instead and nearly didn't wake up. When the paramedics arrived, they told her what had happened. She'd had a heart attack, a quiet one, a silent MI, they called it. No fireworks, no drama. Just the kind that sneaks in when you're alone and too used to pushing through discomfort. What most people don't realize is that heart attack symptoms change with age. What might be dramatic in your 40s becomes subtle in your 70s. The crushing chest pain? It might never come. Instead, the signs are quieter, fatigue that feels different, shortness of breath doing small things, a heavy sensation in your back, jaw, or arms, sudden nausea or cold sweats for no clear reason. Even confusion or sleep changes in the days leading up. Margaret told me later, "I thought I was just being dramatic. I kept telling myself, 'You're fine, don't overreact.'" But what she now knows, and what she wants others to know, is that dismissing these signs is the real danger. So many seniors were taught to tough things out, and often that strength becomes a silent threat. You don't want to cause a scene. You don't want to seem overcautious. But listen to this. Nearly 40% of seniors who experience heart attacks report no chest pain at all, not even mild. So how do you know when to act? You trust the pattern. You notice when your body's rhythm changes, even slightly. You take a note when something just feels wrong. You call, not because you're panicking, but because you're wise enough to know your body isn't trying to lie to you. The first step is recognition. The second, knowing what to do next. 3. Your first 60 seconds, what you must do before you collapse. For most of his life, Walter prided himself on not being the kind of man who panics. He was 74, a retired postmaster from Iowa, and the type who fixed things with his hands and his common sense. So when he felt a strange wave of tightness in his chest while watering the porch plants one quiet morning, he didn't panic. He paused. The sensation wasn't dramatic. No stabbing pain, no gasping, just wrong. A dull weight in his upper chest, spreading to his neck. At first, he blamed the humid air. Then he remembered what his neighbor, a retired EMT, once told him at a backyard barbecue. If something feels off and you can't explain it, act first, figure it out later. That sentence echoed in Walter's mind as he reached into his pocket for his phone. He called 911 and told them in the clearest voice he could manage, "I think I might be having a heart attack. I'm home alone. Please come quickly." Then, remembering another tip, he left the door unlocked and sat back down in the kitchen chair, upright, hands resting on the table, legs steady on the floor. When the paramedics arrived, he was pale but alert. They stabilized him, loaded him into the ambulance, and told him quietly, "You did everything right. If you'd waited another 5 minutes, we might not be here talking." That's the kind of decision that happens in the first 60 seconds, and that's all it takes to tip the scale between life and death. When a heart attack strikes, especially in older adults, hesitation is the real killer. Too many people lose precious minutes searching Google, calling a friend instead of 911, or convincing themselves it'll pass. Others, especially those who live alone, convince themselves it's nothing and try to tough it out. But here's the truth. You only get one shot at responding quickly. If your heart is crying out for help, don't wait for it to scream. That whisper of discomfort, that strange fatigue, that faint tightness, that's the voice you must hear. So, what exactly should you do in that moment? First, stop what you're doing. Sit down somewhere stable, preferably a firm chair with back support. Don't lie flat unless you're fainting. Next, call 911 immediately. Don't waste time calling your kids, your neighbor, or your primary doctor. Call 911 and say clearly, "I'm a senior, and I think I'm having a heart attack." If possible, unlock your front door. Paramedics need to reach you without breaking in. Keep your phone within arm's reach, just in case your condition changes. If you have a medical alert system or smartwatch with emergency services, activate it as backup, but never in place of calling 911. This isn't about being dramatic, it's about survival. Acting quickly is not overreacting. It's being wise, prepared, and committed to staying alive. Walter didn't do anything heroic. He didn't leap into action or administer CPR to himself. He simply made the call, sat down, breathed, waited. That was enough. That was everything. The one pill that saves 1 in 4, but only if you chew it right. Doris had always been a planner. At 71, she kept a tidy kitchen, a calendar with color-coded appointments, and an emergency drawer with all the just-in-case things. Flashlights, batteries, a whistle, even aspirin. The bottle sat neatly in the front, clearly labeled. But when her moment came, planning wasn't enough. It started as a dull, uncomfortable pressure behind her breastbone. Nothing sharp, nothing that screamed emergency. She thought maybe it was something she ate, but as the tightness spread into her jaw and shoulders and sweat formed on her forehead, something deep inside whispered, "This isn't normal." She remembered the video her daughter had sent her weeks earlier. "If you suspect a heart attack, chew 1 full-strength aspirin." So she reached for the drawer, grabbed the bottle, and in the moment of panic, made 2 classic mistakes. She took the pill with a big gulp of water, and she swallowed it whole. By the time she was in the ambulance, the clot in her artery had already cut off blood flow for too long. She survived, but her recovery was slow and filled with what-ifs. Here's what Doris wishes everyone over 60 knew. Aspirin can save your life, but only if you take it the right way at the right time. When a heart attack begins, a clot starts to block the blood flow to your heart. Aspirin slows the platelets in your blood from sticking together, which can stop the clot from growing. That's why the first minutes are everything. But here's the key. It doesn't work well if you just swallow it like a regular pill. You need to chew it thoroughly. The aspirin enters your bloodstream much faster this way within 5 minutes. instead of 20 to 30 if swallowed. The correct method is simple but specific. Call 911 first, always. Then chew 1 325 milligram adult aspirin or 4 81 milligram baby aspirins. Use only a small sip of water, just enough to help you swallow. Tell the paramedics what time you took it and how much. Never use Tylenol, Advil, or ibuprofen. They don't have the same effect. Just as important, keep aspirin somewhere easy to grab, not in a high cabinet or behind child-proof caps. Doris now keeps a small Ziploc bag with aspirin in her purse, another on her nightstand, and one in the glove compartment. It's a small habit, a quiet form of preparation, but one that could mean watching your grandchildren grow up, instead of becoming a story they tell about what could have been. And remember, when the moment comes, you won't have time to read instructions. What you've practiced, what you've heard before, will be all you've got. So let this be the moment you learn it right, before you ever need it. 5. Sit like this, and you might stay conscious until help arrives. Eugene had always been told to lie down when he felt faint. At 79, with arthritis in his knees and a heart that had given him trouble once before, he trusted that advice. So, when he started feeling tightness in his chest and shortness of breath while making his morning tea, he walked to the couch, stretched out flat, and passed out before he could dial 911. The emergency team later told his daughter that lying flat had made things worse. He cut off his lungs, one paramedic said. All he needed was to sit. The truth is, your body position during a heart attack matters far more than most people realize, especially for seniors whose lungs and hearts can already be under strain from age or other conditions. The safest position for most older adults in a suspected heart attack is something called the high Fowler's position. That means sitting upright, back supported, legs relaxed. If you're on a couch, sit all the way back and place a pillow behind your shoulders. If you're in a chair, keep your spine tall and your arms resting comfortably on your lap or a table. This position allows your lungs to expand fully and your heart to do less work. It also helps you stay alert longer, critical if you're waiting for emergency help. Now, if you're feeling dizzy or like you might pass out, recline slightly, about 45 degrees. Not lying flat, but gently leaning back. That way, if you faint, you're already in a supported posture, reducing injury risk. And don't overlook the basics. Loosen anything tight. Collars, bras, belts, waistbands, anything pressing against your chest, neck, or stomach can restrict breathing and circulation. If you're sweating or shivering, wrap yourself in a light blanket. Your body is under enormous stress, and even a small drop in temperature can put added strain on your heart. Eugene's daughter learned this the hard way, but now she shares it with everyone at their church. He just didn't know, she says. None of us did, but now we do. When it comes to surviving a heart attack, knowledge isn't just power, it's breath, blood, and precious minutes. Sometimes sitting the right way is the quiet decision that keeps your heart beating. 6. Breathe to survive. How one simple technique can calm your heart. Vivian had always struggled with anxiety, especially since her husband passed. At 71, living alone in Arizona, she had her routines, morning walks, afternoon tea, and a little breathing practice her daughter had taught her during the pandemic. She never imagined it would one day save her life. That evening, she felt it again, that strange tightness, a wave of heat across her chest, and a rising sense of dread. Her first instinct was to panic, but instead of freezing, she reached for something familiar, her breath. She sat upright, closed her eyes, and started the 4-7-8 breathing technique. Inhale for 4 seconds, hold for 7, exhale for 8. She did it again and again. With every breath, her fear began to loosen. Her thoughts slowed. Her heart calmed just enough for her to stay present, call 911, and give them her address without trembling. Controlled breathing isn't just some wellness trend. It's a tool that activates your parasympathetic nervous system, the part of your body that tells your heart and lungs, "You're safe now." Especially during a heart attack, when adrenaline is flooding your system, your heart is overworking, and your brain is screaming for clarity. This one technique can make a massive difference. It won't stop a heart attack, but it will keep you calm, focused, and alive long enough to get help. If you've never tried it before, now is the time. Practice even once a day. Inhale through your nose for 4 seconds. Hold your breath for 7 seconds. Exhale through your mouth slowly for 8 seconds. Do it 4 cycles in a row. Vivian says it best. "It gave me something to do while waiting. It gave me back control when everything else felt out of my hands." 7. If you start to black out, do this. It might keep you alive. Dennis didn't remember falling. He only remembered the moment before, gripping the kitchen counter, sweat pouring down his face, and thinking, "I'm not going to make it." He lived alone, no one nearby. And in that terrifying moment, instinct took over. He dropped to the floor, made a fist, and began pounding his chest, not out of panic, but out of something he'd read once in a pamphlet at his cardiologist's office. He didn't know if it would work, but it did. His body stayed conscious long enough for help to arrive. What Dennis did is called self-administered chest compressions, and while not a replacement for CPR, it can help circulate blood for a few more minutes if you're alone and starting to lose consciousness. Here's how it works. Lie flat on a hard surface. Make a fist. Place it in the center of your chest. Use your other hand to press down firmly. Release. Press again. In steady rhythm. Is it risky? Yes, especially for seniors with brittle bones or prior fractures. But when the alternative is death from cardiac arrest, a small risk is better than no chance at all. This technique isn't taught widely, and many doctors hesitate to recommend it unless you're truly out of options. But if you're alone, no help in sight, and fading fast, it might be your only chance. 8. Build your action plan before you need it. Marie had always assumed that if something serious happened, she'd figure it out in the moment. But the day her neighbor collapsed from a heart attack, and Marie couldn't find her medications, didn't know her doctor's name, and couldn't open the gate for the paramedics, she realized something chilling. Not having a plan can cost someone their life, so she built one. And you should too. Your heart attack action plan doesn't need to be complicated, just complete. Start with an index card in your wallet, listing your name, medications, allergies, conditions, emergency contacts, and doctor's info. Aspirin in multiple places, bedside, purse, car, a visible house number for emergency responders, a key box or unlocked gate plan if you live alone. And if possible, a medical alert device with fall detection and emergency calling. Marie practices her plan like a fire drill. She even rehearses her breathing and what she'd say to 911. It helps me feel prepared, she says. not scared, because the best time to plan for a heart attack is long before it happens. Preparation isn't fear, it's love, foresight, and the deepest form of self-respect. Maybe what's most surprising about heart attacks after 60 isn't how dangerous they are. It's how quiet they can be. They don't always come crashing in like lightning. Sometimes they arrive like a whisper, a little tiredness, a strange ache, a feeling that something's off but not quite wrong. And that's what makes them so dangerous. Because at this stage in life, many of us have learned to brush off discomfort, to minimize pain, to tell ourselves, this is just aging. But aging doesn't mean ignoring. It means listening more carefully to your body, to your instincts, and to what life is still trying to tell you. The stories you've heard in this video, Walter, Vivian, Dennis, Doris, aren't just cautionary tales. They're reminders that in the face of something as serious as a heart attack, you don't need to be heroic. You just need to be ready. You don't need to be strong in the old way, silent and stoic. You need a different kind of strength now, the kind that picks up the phone, that unlocks the door, that chews the aspirin, that breathes slowly and clearly, even when everything feels uncertain. And the beauty of that strength is, it can be practiced, it can be learned. It's in the quiet habits we build before the emergency. Keeping aspirin by the bed, rehearsing what to say when calling 911, talking to our doctor about risk, setting up a medical alert, writing down medications, walking through the what-if scenario, not in fear, but in wisdom. Because preparation is not panic. Preparation is peace. It's the promise we make to our future selves and to the people who love us that we intend to stay here, present, alive, a little longer. So if there's one thing I'd like you to take from this video, it's this. You have more control than you think, even in a moment that feels out of control. Your breath, your posture, your planning. These small, quiet choices can become the reason you make it through. And maybe that's the lesson for all of us over 60. That survival isn't just luck. It's not something that happens to you. It's something you participate in. With every decision, every preparation, every time you choose to trust your gut, you give yourself another day, another moment, another memory with the people you love. Have you ever had a moment when your body was trying to tell you something and you almost didn't listen? What made you finally pay attention? If this video helped you feel more prepared, more aware, or simply more seen, I'd love to invite you to subscribe to the channel. We're building a space where knowledge, compassion, and real conversations come together, especially for those of us growing wiser with age. And if you'd like to support this work further, feel free to leave a comment, like, share this video with someone you care about. No pressure, just deep thanks for spending this time with me. Stay safe, stay strong, and most of all, stay here. The world still needs you.